Alright, we got a new report that kind of confirms what the Lakers plan to do this summer, how aggressive they plan to be, and what their step-by-step approach might be. According to Bobby Marks of ESPN, he expects them to be quote-unquote extremely aggressive this offseason, talking about what they plan to do with their trades, their trade targets, getting a starting center for their team, and even a Luka Dončić potential contract extension. And here's what he had to say about it.
I expect them to be extremely aggressive this offseason, especially with LeBron likely going into, he's got 1 year left on his contract. I think there's three things here. You've got to take advantage of the $60 million in expiring contracts when you're looking at certainly players like Gabe Vincent and Rui Hachimura. The second thing is they showed their hand at the trade deadline when they made that Mark Williams trade that wound up failing him on his physical. They are going to go out and get a center this offseason. We'll see how that goes. You've got one first-round pick to do that. And then the third thing is keep an eye on August 2nd. That is when Luka is eligible to sign that extension. So you're trying to build for the now, but I think you also have to have an eye for the future when eventually LeBron does retire here.
Like he said, the Lakers are going to be aggressive. Now some fans might tell you otherwise and be very pessimistic about that, but everything they've shown throughout the past half year now tells you that they're gonna be aggressive. I mean, for one, trading for Dorian Finney-Smith, that kind of started it, and many fans even kind of forgot about it at this point. Then after that point, trading for Luka Dončić, something they kept quiet for over a month according to reports, but making an absolutely blockbuster trade and maybe the weirdest and out of nowhere trade in NBA history at that. And even after that point, not waiting around and not waiting until after the trade deadline, they tried to make another trade despite it not going through. Rob Pelinka tried to get Mark Williams and tried to give them their future long-term center, showing how aggressive he tried to be for Luka Dončić for not only the long-term but even their short-term future. But unfortunately the trade deadline passed and they couldn't make a move after that point. But with them now having time again, entering the offseason, having more trade assets, entering free agency, and a lot more teams probably willing to make a move with them, they're definitely going to be aggressive. At least I think so anyway. And yes, they do in fact have the trade assets to back up that aggressive approach. Like Bobby Marks referred to and kind of talked about there, they have $60 million in expiring contracts. Everything from Rui Hachimura, Maxi Kleber, Gabe Vincent, Shake Milton, a couple more after that point, and then young trade assets with guys like Austin Reeves and or Dalton Connect, a 2031 unprotected first-round draft pick, 4 future first-round draft pick swaps, being in 2026, 2028, 2030, and 2032 after the NBA calendar year flips, which will be later this month in June by the way. They definitely have plenty of trade assets and more than enough to be aggressive. Whether you're talking about a big trade, they have the trade assets and the expiring contracts to get to that point, again roughly $60 million worth, or then for 2 to 3 medium-sized trades, multiple smaller trades, or whatever approach they want to take, they do have the trade assets to do it with. Again, some fans might tell you otherwise, and the pessimistic ones might say they won't make a trade and they don't have any trade assets. That's simply not true. They definitely do, and no matter what they say, the Lakers have the ability to make a trade or multiple of them. And well, that's without even factoring in all the trade targets they've been linked to. I mean, after all, they're the Lakers, and they have no shortage of trade rumors being linked to them or trade targets being linked to them. But in just the past month alone here, and probably even less than that, they have been linked to guys like Nick Claxton, Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, Luke Cornett, Larry Nance Jr., Day'Ron Sharpe, and many, many more after that point. Even bigger fish like Giannis Antetokounmpo and Bam Adebayo, for example, who I don't really buy a whole lot of stock in, and I don't think they'll go that route. But regardless, they've been linked to plenty of names and do have the trade assets to potentially get many of them, or even a couple of them, depending on who you're talking about. So overall here, I am buying the aggressive approach that Bobby Marks says they will take, and reports have said that they likely will take as well. I'm buying it, whether you're talking about their trade assets, what they literally showed prior to the trade deadline, again everything from the failed Mark Williams trade, literally trading for Luka Dončić and maybe making the biggest NBA trade in season of all time, or even Dorian Finney-Smith prior to that point. They're definitely showing to be aggressive, and I think they will continue that mindset. Then for what they'll target with the trade assets, I think it's pretty obvious here, and Bobby Marks did talk about it. Number one being a starting level center, and that's their primary need in my opinion. Not even really in my opinion. At the moment, they literally don't have a legitimate center under contract. Even if you consider Jackson Hayes one of them, he's not under contract, does happen to be an unrestricted free agent, and according to reports, likely won't be back with their team. And then for what else he mentioned here, that simply being depth, and I would agree with that too. Mainly 3-and-D depth, whether you're talking about backcourt or frontcourt, definitely more 3-and-D depth for their team and a big mindset and focus here on defense. But between the two of them, they definitely have their work cut out for them. Definitely need a center, likely two of them in my opinion. Again, they don't have a center under contract at the moment. Jackson Hayes happens to be an unrestricted free agent. Maxi Kleber is their only kind of big man under contract, if you consider him one, and that's simply not enough here. So gotta target a center, whether that's via trade and or the free agent market. That's gotta be priority number one. Then adding a lot more 3-and-D fits around Luka Dončić and LeBron. Obviously, that's a big need for their team and really any team at that. Gotta prioritize both, but gotta do it smart. They can't afford to go all in on one and then forget the other. I've seen many comments saying that all they need is a center. And while I would agree they need a center, that's definitely not all they need in my opinion. If you watch throughout the postseason or even at times during the regular season, they were greatly missing 3-and-D depth and guys that could fit well around Luka Dončić, LeBron, and Austin, and even make that big three fit work better in my opinion. I've talked about it with guys like Herb Jones and potential 3-and-D trade targets for their team. I think that's the only way they really make that trio work in the same starting lineup. Many have gone the opposite route and said to trade Austin Reeves instead, which I guess you could go that route, but I don't find it very likely. And according to reports, they're really not going to do that or even look to do it. So I think they gotta add a player that makes the fit better around them. A center is one way to do it, but it's very hard to find that perfect fit for all three of them. Yes, Luka Dončić likes a lob threat, and they definitely should target that, but the center alone can't make the fit between them work perfectly in my opinion. That's gonna come with a very good fitting 3-and-D wing. A guy like Herb Jones, for example, a guy that's a top tier defender, a top 10 defender in my opinion, literally at that level, a guy that can take on the toughest matchup game by game and pretty much at any position 1 through 4. Then on top of that is a reliable offensive player and primarily catch and shoot guy, a guy that doesn't necessarily need the ball in their hands but also can do that at times, more so as a 3-point shooter, a guy that elevates them offensively and defensively at the same time. And well, that's definitely not easy to find. 3-and-D plus kind of players like that definitely come at a premium price. Again, like Herb Jones for example, those kind of guys come at a premium price and definitely won't be easy to find both that and a starting level center in the same offseason. However, I think the Lakers will try to do it and will be ultra aggressive in trying to find both. Though it might not be until the trade deadline until they get both. I know some fans might not want to hear that, but I wouldn't be shocked if they address one of the big needs right now, whether that be the center, and I definitely would go after that first, or the 3-and-D fit around LeBron, Luka, and Austin. It might take a little bit longer than some expect, but I think they will be aggressive in that approach despite it taking maybe until the trade deadline. I mean, after all, they really can only do it through a trade. Maybe they can find a starting center in free agency. I've talked about a guy like Luke Cornett for example, but if we're talking about a guy like Nick Claxton, Daniel Gafford, somebody at that level, it's gotta come through a trade, not free agency, as they simply don't have the kind of money to get that kind of player. I hate bringing it up, but without a LeBron pay cut, they're not going to be able to do it. At that point, they only have $5.6 million to offer as their biggest contract, and they really can't get a starting level center or the 3-and-D perfect fit around LeBron, Luka, and Austin for that kind of price. It's not going to happen. So again, I definitely think they will be aggressive, but it's also going to be really difficult for them to address every single need they have in their team in a very short time frame, so be a little bit patient with them too. But then finally finishing up with the Luka Dončić contract and the potential contract extension with him, which he will be eligible for on August 4th, being eligible for a 4-year, $229 million contract extension. That would keep him under contract until 2030 and pretty much have him locked up for the entirety, or hopefully not the entirety, of his NBA prime. But he might not in fact go that route. Rather than signing that contract right now, he could instead wait another year and be paid more money. At that point, he would be eligible for a 5-year contract worth roughly $300 million. So yes, one more year added to it, but also about $70 million more in guaranteed money. Or instead, he could take a 3-year contract right now, less short-term money, but more long-term money if he would stay healthy and his body holds up, which I believe it will, and at that point, he would then be eligible for a Supermax contract. Yes, we're talking about in 2029 here, but that would give him quite a lot of money here. He would then be eligible for a 5-year contract worth roughly $417 million. So yeah, we're talking about a gigantic contract here. At that point, that would be the biggest contract in NBA history, and if the salary cap keeps on rising like it is, then he probably would be eligible for it. However, there is some risk with that. If he would get hurt in that time frame, if he would decline and no longer be a max level player, then the Lakers obviously wouldn't give it to him. So rather than having a 4-year contract with at least $228 million guaranteed, he would only be taking a 3-year contract with less than $200 million, with the potential upside of getting that massive contract, but it not being guaranteed. So I guess we'll find out what kind of betting man Luka Dončić is. Will he take the 4-year contract right now that would give him roughly $230 million guaranteed? Will he take the 3-year contract with potential for more upside but also a little bit of risk? Or will he wait 1 more year and then get some more long-term money without as much risk but also a little bit of risk? 3 different options for him, and it'll be very interesting to watch which one he takes and how it all plays out for him. And well, with all of that being said here, what do you guys think? How do you feel about the potential Luka Dončić contract extension? How do you feel about the Lakers' plan and them apparently being very aggressive this offseason? Are you buying it? Do you not believe it? And how do you think it will all pan out for them and Luka Dončić? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. But I think that'll pretty much do it for this one. And if you enjoyed the video, then I'll greatly appreciate it if you dropped a like, subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and hit that notification bell to never miss out when I upload a video. But as always, thank you for watching and have a great day or night.